God doesn't ask you to go through things for no reason. There's always a purpose. There's always a plan. It may not be anything that you understand. Some things we're not meant to understand. Mom was here for the right amount of time. It wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't what I needed. But it was her time. And, I'll see her again.
You try not to make these cases too personal, but no matter how hard you try, they are personal when you do look at the photograph of a young child and realize how they died. Children aren't supposed to die that way. This is the first time that I'd ever come across a serial killer. Is this someone who was still out there? Who is that person? Where is that person? Is that person dead? Is that person in jail? Is that person out committing other homicides that I don't know about?
In any other world, we would never had anything in common. But because this horrific thing happened to us, we have this bond now that will never be broken, no matter what goes on in our lives.
Hey, Kimberly. I know how hard today is for you. But I want you to remember something. Your story is your story. Even though we all hurt the same way, we all had very different experiences. You have survived so much. And you're gonna survive today too. Okay? I love you. Bye.
This is probably like one of the last pictures she took before everything happened. She didn't even make it to my age. My mom was from Thailand. My dad was in the Vietnam War. That's how they met. When my parents divorced, I went to live with my dad and my stepmother. My brother went to live with my grandmother, and my mom lived with her boyfriend and his 2 kids. We were starting to really get close right before everything happened. That's when I really started spending my most time with her, was towards the end. My father picked me up from school. He really didn't say anything. He was just quiet on the ride home. He didn't say nothing to me, nothing. I knew something wasn't right. I just didn't know what it was. I knew by the look on his face something wasn't right. It was kind of disbelief. didn't understand quite what he was saying to me. I mean, I understood she was gone, but it wasn't like sinking in the whole severity of it. Dad didn't really say much. I don't think he could. It was hard for him. I know he loved my mother. I just remember holding Timmy and telling him that we'd be okay. That as long as we stick together, we'd be fine. But we lost our mom. I knew nothing was ever going to be all right. Can we stop, please?
Mom got up every day before the sun. She would run different routes every day. She ran when it was 100 degrees outside. She ran in sleet and snow. And I remember her coming home with icicles in her hair because the sweat had frozen. It was something she did for herself, and there wasn't a lot in her life that she did for herself. I think it brought her peace. May 23rd, 1988 was a Monday. I got up to get ready for school. I lived with my mom, her boyfriend Perry, and my 12-year-old brother, Danny. The house was still quiet. Danny and Perry were still asleep, and Mom was out running. It was the typical Monday morning. Grabbed my book bag, went to school. As soon as I was in front of the door, it opened, and Perry was there. And that's when he told me that she hadn't come home. He asked me when the last time I saw her was, and I told him last night. She gave me a really long hug and stroked my hair. And told me she loved me and good night, and that was the last time I saw her. I needed that hug. I needed to hear her tell me she loved me. I found her phone book, and I started calling people.
Have you seen my mom?
Her friends, therapists.
Have you seen my mom?
Then I got the yellow pages out, and I started calling hospitals. I didn't know what else to do. A little after 5, a sedan pulled up out front. 2 men in suits got out. Just looking down, rounded shoulders, just like they knew they were going to destroy our world.
here to inform you, we found Elaine.
They found her body in a farmer's field, a few miles from the house.
She was murdered.
They did tell me that she had been raped. And stabbed to death. I remember hearing my brother in his bedroom let out a howl. He howled like a wounded animal. And I couldn't help him. I couldn't even help myself. They kept reassuring us that they would find out who did it. But no suspects, no theories at that point. For a lot of years, I waited and I prayed and I yelled at God. I yelled at God.
In 1997, I was a cold case investigator for the homicide unit. I was the only investigator at the time, and we had about 24 cold cases on the books. I had to sit down every day and go through logbooks that were older than I were at the time, and go through cases and determine what cases we were going to work. Lisa's case was the first case I looked at because it was the newest case. Lisa Hanel was a straight A student, 14-year-old girl who lived with her mom. She would normally leave her apartment, walk a short distance to school, go to school, and then come home. One day, when her mother got home in the afternoon, she got a phone call from the school saying that Lisa did not show up for class that morning. Meg, Lisa's mom, by each tick of the clock, became more anxious. Meg's boyfriend decided that he would go out and look for Lisa, retrace the path that she would walk to school every day. At some point, he looked out into a wooded ravine area just prior to where the school property was, and he saw something. He realized it was a body, and he also realized it was Lisa. You're looking at someone's daughter. You're looking at a 14-year-old girl who's laying in the woods in January, frozen, who's completely nude and has been murdered. You try not to make these cases too personal, but no matter how hard you try, they are personal. When you do look at the photograph of a young child and realize how they died. Children aren't supposed to die that way. What I wanted to do was take a look at the physical evidence, look at the crime scene. As an investigator, our job is to provide answers and not allow the person responsible for that type of damage to get away with it. But I never thought I'd ever come across a serial killer.
I remember my aunt telling me I should say goodbye, touch her, give her a kiss if I wanted to, but I was too scared to touch her. They had so much makeup on her, like too much makeup. You ever seen a mannequin? That's what it looked like to me at that age. Like it was just a mannequin laying there. It kind of resembled my mother, but it wasn't her. And that was my last memory of my mother. It was obvious that it went cold. It was maybe 4 years later when me and Timmy went to the police station. They called us and asked us if we can come pick up her personal belongings, that they didn't need them no more.
Thank you.
Wasn't sure what we were picking up. You know, a lot of anxiety. The officer gave us a brown envelope. She had her wallet still and her jewelry. And it's just, you know, weird, odd. Like, just to think that she once held it and now I'm holding it. It made it like it was all real again. And it was just one of those things I kind of accepted at that point, that I probably would never know who killed my mother.
When Lisa was murdered, the police didn't know who did it. There was a lot of fear in the community. Every parent that sent their child to that high school was concerned that their child was going to be the next victim. The biggest piece of evidence that they found at the crime scene was a Newport cigarette. That cigarette was 17 feet from Lisa's body. It was out of place. It had unknown blood on the end that you would light, and eventually we found that it had saliva on the filter end. We knew it wasn't Lisa's saliva on that filter end. We knew it was somebody else's. Just didn't know who that was. At the time, the investigators focused on a relative or a close family associate initially, and then pursued leads of other individuals that were known to hang out in the area. But they never really had any idea who did it. At the time of Lisa's case in 1993, DNA was really at its infancy. Now, in 1997, DNA technology had advanced to the point where we felt comfortable using the evidence. So that's where we started. Getting search warrants for people's saliva, getting consent to do DNA testing on those individuals. The 1988 case, Elaine Sharika, she was murdered not far from her home while she was jogging. The Sharika case file was in archives at the time. It was literally sitting in a warehouse collecting dust. Elaine's running path was basically through her neighborhood, and then at some point she would turn down a pretty isolated road that would go down into eventually what became a park. But both sides of the roadway are wooded. A farmer in the area called the police department saying he located a body in the field. Police department responded. It was immediately apparent that it was Elaine's body. She was sexually assaulted. She was not only strangled, but she was also cut very deeply on her neck. And I remember reading that case file and the brutality of it, looking at the crime scene, looking at the photographs, thinking to myself, wow, this case has to be brought out and looked at. We had no suspects. The case really wasn't going anywhere.
Sometime after my mother's death, I learned that my mom had had an altercation with Michael. Michael and I were coworkers and friends. I was 17 and he was 4 or 5 years older than me. He had asked me out several times and my mother had forbid me from dating him because he was too old for me. My mom's boyfriend, Harry, relayed a story to me that happened a few weeks before she died. Michael had come looking for me and she asked him to leave.
What happened between you and my mother?
I came over to see you, and she went all psycho on me.
She had actually pushed him off our front porch because he was yelling at her. Michael acted very odd in the days and weeks after Mom's death. He had tried to commit suicide, was in the hospital. Just didn't sit well with me. He wasn't somebody that would have immediately popped into my head of this is who I think killed my mother, but his behavior was very suspicious and made it just that much easier to draw the line. If I hadn't known him, if I hadn't been friends with him, if I hadn't socialized with him, they wouldn't have known each other. That was a really dark time for me to think that I could have brought this person into our lives that took her life. I was convinced it was him. I was convinced it was him and that it was my fault.
Hey, Michael, why don't you tell us what happened?
I already told you I don't know anything about Elaine.
They questioned him about my mom's death, and he said he didn't know anything about it. They were able to find Chris's body. He was beaten to death with a baseball bat. So shortly after he pled guilty to Chris's death, the detectives asked if there was any chance that he could have been the one to have killed Mom. And it was pretty easy to draw the line. I was absolutely convinced it was him, that he had done it. It was a matter of time. They were going to figure it out.
Michael was a strong suspect in the case from the beginning because he had a relationship with the family. There was animosity between him and Elaine. He had violent tendencies at the time. He was seen as somebody who was violent, somebody who was capable of committing this homicide. During the initial investigation, investigators had interviewed Michael to try to determine if he was associated with the crime at all. He had motive, certainly had opportunity. Detectives worked it very hard, but nothing really developed in the case. He remained a suspect for a very, very long time. We went to the medical examiner's office and got swabbings, microscopic slides from Elaine's autopsy. We were very comfortable that those slides had a DNA profile, unknown individual that sexually assaulted her. At the same time, we submitted Michael's saliva DNA sample to the lab. If he was a contributor, then we knew we had him. Then we could build a case. So it was really just a waiting game, but we were always like, that phone call is going to come.
I didn't have no idea how much it was going to affect my life. How much it affected my brother's life. Definitely hit Timmy harder. I think because he knew her better. He was older, understood it more than I did. Timmy couldn't handle it, so he escaped into drugs to deal with it. There was times when he was in drugs, and no matter what he was doing, I would get my pillow, my blanket, and I would just go in the car and go with him because I wanted to make sure he was okay doing it. I figured if I was with him, it was a less chance of something bad happening. He was lost. That's why I felt like I had to take care of him. Timmy was always felt like he was lost. I don't think he ever felt like he belonged anywhere after. That one event even took him from me. I know people say he did it to himself, but when he went down that path, if she was still here, I don't think he would have. I really do miss him. He was my best friend. I'm done with that one.
So Michael was the prime suspect in the case, always had been, and he was a strong suspect. But we were able to eliminate him as being a contributor to the DNA we recovered off of Elaine's body. Looking at the cases, they had distinct similarities. The 1988 case, Elaine Sharika, she was murdered not far from her home. Lisa Hanel case in 1993 was not in the same community, but it was only a 10-minute drive away. What struck me in the Sharika case was, again, early morning, crime of opportunity. The person probably knew that was her jogging route. Probably had seen her done that before. The offender parked in that field, so she would never know he was there. Someone had actually laid in wait, planned it out. Lisa's case, very similar type of crime. The early morning attack, laying in wait for Lisa as she's walking to school, laying in wait for Elaine as she's running. Both of them were immediately assaulted, drugged into a more isolated area where the offender committed the homicide and either sexual assault or attempted a sexual assault, and then fled. I'm looking at the evidence. I'm looking at the MO of each one of these cases. It becomes more clear to me they could be related. No one had thought of that before. What I'm thinking is the same person did it. Who is that person? Where is that person? Is that person dead? Is that person in jail? Is that person out committing other homicides that I don't know about? And it's my job to try to find out if those homicides are related. And it's my job to stop this person, or at least find out who this is. Very few cold cases are solved, and they take a very long time to solve. I respected the detectives that worked the cases, but I understood that I was my own person. I was my own detective, and I was going to look at the evidence the way I saw it. one of the things that I did was look at, okay, were there any similar cases to the Lisa Hanel case in 1993 and Elaine Sharika in May of 1988? We looked through the case files, looking at the location where they occurred, the time frame, the MO, the type of homicides, how they've been murdered. Was it a sexual assault? Was it a blitz attack type of crime? The Boonthem Anderson case, she was murdered in her home in a residential area in 1986. Kind of a blitz attack, sexual assault, stabbing, similar to the other cases. She'd been stabbed in the neck multiple times. She was then thrown face down nude into a bathtub with her arms tied behind her back. I knew she'd been sexually assaulted. The type of persons of interest in the Anderson case that were looked at were just individuals that were seen in the area at the time. They looked at, family members, but no one really stuck out from the initial investigation throughout the years as being a very strong suspect. The Anderson case went cold very quickly. What I'm thinking is I have 3 cases here. My gut feeling was that they were related, and I was going to go with my gut. It was worth taking these 3 cases, putting them side by side, and start looking at every single detail to see what kind of similarities there were. The Anderson 86 case and the 88 Sharika case were very close to each other. You say, well, wow, that's a pretty short period of time in a small area to have 3 women randomly, brutally murdered in the way that they were. That's when we really started looking at those cases, and Lisa's case differently. We thought we had a serial killer on our hands and that he was responsible for multiple cases in the county. What we did is we went through each one of those case files and selected what we felt was the best pieces of evidence to send to DNA testing. You have DNA, now let's see if you can solve it. This is the first time that I'd ever come across a serial killer. That was the point where we knew that those 3 cases were related and the same person was responsible for committing those murders. Is this someone who was still out there committing these type of murders? Were they in jail or were they deceased? We submitted those cases to the Maryland State Police to enter into the state and federal DNA database. I was home in my yard raking leaves in the fall in Maryland, and I got a page to call the Maryland State Police Crime Lab. They had told me we did have a match, Alexander Wayne Watson Jr. The name didn't mean anything to me at the time.
Alex was friends with my mom's boyfriend's oldest son at the time. He was at the house maybe once or twice at the most when I was over there visiting with my mother. That's why she answered the door, because she knew him. She answered the door because, he acted like he was there for the son. I got in the car and we started driving. He didn't take me home. He turned the opposite way.
Where are we going?
And he's like, what would you do if I try to rape you or do something to you? He locked the doors. I was scared. I think like I was right there with him.
Where are we going?
Wherever I want to take you.
And he's like, what would you do if I try to rape you or do something to you? I looked right at him. I said, I will make sure they know it's you, because I'm going to leave every freaking mark that I can.
Let me out.
And he let me out of the car. And I think about that all the time, knowing everything I know now and how close I really came to death and didn't even realize it. I think my mom was watching me that night, was watching over me.
He'd been convicted of a homicide in 1994 in the county next to ours, where he brutally attacked a female alone in her office and eviscerated her with a knife. We then started backtracking, where had he worked, where had he lived? We knew that he grew up in a home very close within the same community of the Anderson homicide and the Sharika homicide. In January of 1993, he lived in an apartment complex right near where Lisa lived. In fact, Lisa would walk past that apartment complex every morning.
We went in as a group, and they brought him in his prison jumper and shackles. They sat him along the back wall in a chair, and he had guards on both sides of him. It took a few minutes for me to understand that the police weren't there to protect us from him. They were there to protect him from us.
I've been waiting for this moment for a long time. Why my mother? Why?
I wanted to hear from myself what he had to say for himself. Why that morning, that road, that day, why her? He had been getting high down in the park all night. She wasn't stalked, she wasn't followed. It was purely a crime of opportunity. He didn't say he was sorry, he didn't show any emotion. He was very cold. But I got to look my mother's killer in the eyes and tell him how he had destroyed her life and how he had tried to destroy mine and how I wasn't going to let him have that power anymore.
The first question I asked him was, do you remember me? And he flat out said, nope, never seen you, which everybody knew was a lie. He couldn't even answer a simple question. I'm not saying it would help, maybe, at least to show some remorse, but there was none at all. He had no expression, no emotion, no nothing. It's like he had no soul. It didn't bother him that we were sitting there. He had no remorse. None. I've realized I wasn't going to get the answers I wanted anyway, so I just walked out.
There's still a lot of answers that we don't have. We really don't know why he did this. Someone that can commit these type of crimes and continue to walk the face of the earth and tell no one about it, apparently have no remorse. Who knows what someone like that, who knows what they're thinking. It's a shame that Lisa isn't an adult now raising a family, that Mary Elaine Sharika didn't get to see her children grow up, and that Boomtown Anderson, her daughter's life was permanently damaged and destroyed by losing her mother as a child. It's just such a waste, and that one individual was responsible for it. It's just a shame. And, as an investigator, you can't fix that no matter how hard you work, or how much DNA you develop in a case, or who you arrest. You can't fix those things.
Mom was here for the right amount of time. It wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't what I needed. But it was her time. And I'll see her again. No, I'm not angry with him. I really am not. Me being angry at him just takes away from me. One of the passages that has helped me when I think about Alex Watson is in Luke 6. It says, "Listen, all of you, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you, pray for the happiness of those who curse you, implore God's blessing on those who hurt you, and you will truly be acting as sons of God, for he is kind to the unthankful and to those who are very wicked." I think about the mistakes that I've made in my life, and I'm no better or worse than anyone else. And I know that God loves me anyway. I am just here to be as good of a person as I know how to be, and to tell people about grace that is available to them if they seek it. It's not my job to judge Alex Watson, but I hope that he has a relationship with God, and I hope that he knows that he can be forgiven for what he's done. Because I believe that. I believe that no matter what you do, forgiveness is available.
This is the reason why I stopped going to church. I had an issue that they're telling me that I have to forgive him to get into heaven. And if he found forgiveness, he gets into heaven. I have a real issue with that. I have no forgiveness for him. And I don't think I ever will.
Jennifer wanted to send a message to you.
Hey, Kimberly. I know how hard today is for you. But I want you to remember something. Your story is your story. Even though we all hurt the same way, we all had very different experiences. Just know that I'm here and I'm praying for you today. You have survived so much. And you're gonna survive today too. Okay? I love you.